Welcome to Breaking the Chain, brought to you by Impel Talent. I'm Nathaniel Chapman.
And I'm Terentia Browne. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Breaking the Chain. I'm in the studio with Nate today, and we are going to be talking about a topic that's actually been quite relevant in this last week. And so we thought it would be good for us to talk about it. The title of the topic is How to Manage Effective Meetings. And I think a lot of people are having death by meetings at the moment. So I think a lot of our delegates that we are coaching, keep running from meeting to meeting. And I think one of the things that most people are struggling with is really being able to focus in meetings and also just get the work done from all the tasks that you are accumulating from every meeting that you're going to. So I think this is something that we wanted to explore. And I think the main thing that we want to bring out today is how, like the practical approach. We don't want to just talk about why are we not being effective in the meetings, but we want to talk about a structure that you could potentially think about, a structure that you could follow. And we always like to start with why. Why would this be important for you to think about and for you to engage with? And so we always like backing it up with an article or with some stats. And so today we really want to explore the why behind this. So from a Harvard Business Review that was done on hybrid work and how it's changed post the pandemic, this research from Microsoft actually has shown that meetings at the moment are quite inefficient and is actually a barrier to productivity. And about 68% of the employees of the study that was done over, I think it was about 450,000 employees over 11 organizations, they said that they actually don't have enough uninterrupted focus time during the workday. And what the research also shows that up to 1/3 of meetings are likely unnecessary, which is quite a staggering amount, which is also quite crazy. And this issue is actually negatively impacting productivity and engagement. And I think the kicker here for me is that they estimated the cost is actually in the hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of wasted time in meetings. So I think this is definitely a topic that we need to think about and challenge ourselves with. So I'd love to just open it up to you, Nate. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think more than ever, managing meetings is so important than ever before. And I think in today's world, there's this growing sentiment that that people aren't working in between meetings; they're having to work around meetings, right? And calendars are overloaded, days are fragmented. It's not uncommon to hear the average professional say, "My whole job is just meetings." I mean, how many times have we heard someone say, "I'm just wiped with meetings"? And I don't think it's so much a time management problem as much as a culture and, I guess, productivity crisis. Meetings are supposed to be moments of alignment. They're supposed to be moments of decision making. They're supposed to be there for creativity and for driving innovation. But when they're poorly managed, I suppose they become the opposite. They're energy draining. They're unclear. They're disruptive. And the worst part is it becomes contagious. And one bad recurring meeting can spawn 5 more corresponding meetings. Someone was just giving me an anecdote yesterday about a reason she didn't want to attend a meeting. My partner actually, was because somebody was in that meeting and hogging the entire dialogue, or what people are getting out of one or particular meeting is different for everyone else. And I think the reality is most companies now are really looking into how they can radically rethink the way meetings are being run to get the most out of their employees. So I think today what's going to be really exciting is that we put together a structure to take people through how we can effectively run meetings and how you have implemented this with our clients and in some of your coaching. But we also have some great examples of how clients, our clients, and how external companies have challenged these things. So I think one key takeaway for anyone in this is if you want to build a high performing team, you must protect people's time and you must protect people's attention. And effective meetings aren't just about setting agendas. It's about creating company culture where you're intentional, valuable, and it's rarely wasted, right?
Absolutely. I think the word here is culture, and the leaders of an organization get to create the meeting culture. I I think when we leave this to chance and we leave it to the people in the organization to do what they want to do, there's no harmony in terms of, you know, what's happening in one meeting to the next. So it all again comes back to who's facilitating the meeting. And you will see there's some people want to go to a meeting that certain individuals are calling for, and they don't want to go to other meetings that other individuals are calling for in the same organization. So imagine if we can set the tone, set the culture of meetings from a leadership perspective, giving guidance. Again, being prescriptive doesn't mean you're being confined, right? It means that we have harmony across the organization in terms of our approach. And again, what's the value we want to get from these meetings? We don't want to have people feeling drained and that they're saying, you know, I can only do my job after hours because the entire day is taken up by meetings. And I think just another myth that I would like to bust on this episode is that, you know, taking your laptops into a meeting and working while the meeting's going on, you actually are better off declining the meeting than going into a meeting, sitting there, working and feeling like you're there, but you're actually not there. And that the people who have taken time to prepare their presentations and actually meet you in the room fully present and engaged, they basically, you know, their morale's going down, their confidence is going down. They actually feel disrespected because they may have, you know, slept after midnight trying to prep for this topic, and now they come into a room and nobody's listening to them. And it's really
Yeah.
demotivating. I think this, for me, from an emotional intelligence perspective, the body language that we are exuding or showing while we're in a meeting and we're not paying attention really just drags down the energy of the room. I don't know if you've been in
100%.
rooms where you've felt like that.
Yeah, I mean, there was an example from a candidate of mine the other day who was doing a massive presentation, and the GM, was on their phone the whole time. So,
Yeah.
and I think that even that small interaction impacted that person massively. So even though that person is saying, "Well, I'm busy and I've got stuff on and I've got to be involved elsewhere," that lack of attention is recognized, and it does
Yeah.
cause issues to your team members who don't feel valued or respected, and you've actually damaged more in that one
Yeah.
meeting than what the value of the content was. I think there's
Absolutely.
so many objections, isn't there, to like what different meetings are and why people don't want to be there.
Exactly. So let's get into it. We have a three-step approach to for you to think about, as we always do, because it's easier for us to remember three things, and it's three L's as well. So hopefully that alliteration helps you to remember. But the first one we want to cover is the logistics of the meeting. So if we're looking at structure, I think the first question is to ask, especially the person that is creating the meeting, what are the objectives and the agenda of this meeting? And I know, you know, people say I don't have the time to put all of that together. I think that's something we have tried to do with our meetings that we set with clients, just putting in, you know, 4 or 5 bullet points of what is it that we want to discuss in this meeting, because their time is as valuable as mine. And so we want to keep the structure because we want to also honor each other's time, right? And we want to get value at the end of the meeting. So I think the first thing is thinking about what are the objectives, what's the agenda, and I think the key piece is then sticking to that agenda in the meeting. So not trying to put everything into this one meeting, but really say, what do I want to get out? If it's a decision, rather have, you know, one point on that agenda, and it's a 20-minute meeting, which then becomes an effective meeting. So I think for me, that's the first point under the logistics.
It's crazy to think of, like, I think of the meetings that I've been in where it gets personal too quick because the agenda isn't been set properly or the wrong people have been invited, and then that meeting
Yes.
just rolls over and people start talking about their family, their kids, their weekend. And I get that that's sometimes that meeting space is not the right avenue to be having your social time.
Yes.
It should be quite calculated as to what is our agenda, what are we getting out of this meeting. I'm not saying being mean and rude and awful to somebody, but I think it's
Yeah.
nice to be able to be like, hey, look, this is what our priorities are after you've had your chance to meet and catch up quickly or have an icebreaker. But once the objective of the meeting is reached, give people back their time. Set your agenda. If you've achieved what you need to achieve, move on. And I think people will respect and want to be more likely to attend to those meetings as well.
100%. I think you raised a key point of who are you inviting into that meeting. So I think a lot of times we invite so many different people. We may need them for like a minute or 2 minutes, which you can actually catch up with them prior to the meeting if you are the facilitator, rather than calling them into a meeting for 30, 45 minutes or 60 minutes. And that person is there feeling, I've just lost an hour of my life and I probably said 2 words or I didn't say anything at all. So I think that's a key point under the logistics, is really looking at who should be invited into this meeting. Because I think when we overcrowd meetings, it really makes it difficult to manage the discussions. It makes it difficult to reach decisions because there's so many different viewpoints. And so you actually walk out achieving nothing at the end of the day. So sometimes it's actually better to reduce the size of the group where possible. Again, it's very much situation dependent, but I think it's asking yourself that question: who should be invited to this meeting?
Yeah, and I think you get the "I don't need to be here" feeling, or the "I don't need to be here" comment, or I think if you're inviting people to a meeting, attendees should have a clear role. We have to understand what they're going to add value to. And actually, you want to avoid exclusion, but over inclusion can also be an issue. I've also heard that when people are why am I in this meeting? And people are like, oh, why aren't you in this meeting? It's because I'm not getting any value of it.
Yeah.
And it's to appear collaborative, but it can actually have the opposite of effect, because people who are in that meeting that do not get value or not adding value, they're multitasking. And like you've mentioned with some of your clients, they're on their phones, they're on their laptop, they're not properly engaged in the session. So, it's really important that people recognize who needs to be there and why. Elon Musk has that policy, isn't it? Like, if you don't find value in a meeting, leave. And it's very aggressive in their company. Yes. Probably doesn't fit our culture very well, but just get up and go. I don't want you in that meeting if you don't think it's value or there's nothing that someone's asking of you. But there is a method to that madness, because if you decide to stick it out for that hour or 2 hours or whatever, that's productivity time that you've lost.
Absolutely. And, there are certain people who become distractions in the meeting because they're pounding on their keys on the laptop, or, they on their phone. They're actually distracting the people that are speaking, because communication it's not an easy thing. And especially if you're looking at, organizations where there are a lot more introverted people, which, some of our clients that we are working with, different backgrounds people come from. And it actually takes quite a lot for them to open up in terms of communication and stand in the front and present. And then you have a whole room of people who are disengaged. It really doesn't lend well to that person who's trying to get the message across. So I think that's the key, is really thinking about who should be in the room, really critically thinking about that, analyzing who should be there, what's the value. And if you need someone for like 2-3 minutes to get their thoughts and opinions, you can do that prior to meeting via an email. Bring that information with you into the room, rather than bringing that person into the room to just answer some, a question that you as the facilitator or the leader could have asked before, and just done your research. I think that makes a lot more sense than having, people that feel, I'm only there for a short time, why should I be there?
Yeah, another mirrored comment to this is, I would much rather someone not come to the meeting than someone be in the meeting and on their phone or on their laptop. And reversely, even people that are sometimes in meetings that they're supposed to be in, that we've had clear agendas for, and their input is there, that level of distraction. I mean, I absolutely hate it. I really struggle with someone who's on their laptop or their phone, because I want to engage with someone. I want someone to add value to the topic. And I really don't believe that people go, I can I can multitask and I'm great. That's who I am. And I just don't think you're getting someone's full attention, their brain power. And in which case, we're going to have to do this meeting again. So
exactly, which is what we are finding, right? There's people that have been in a meeting and they are on their laptops, and the questions have been asked, discussions have been had, and then we come towards the end of the meeting and people ask, do you have any questions? someone's asking the very same question that was asked early on in the meeting. There was a whole discussion around it, and this person missed the entire thing. So, this is the reality we are facing. This is data that we have from our clients today. So it's not just, something from an article or from the Harvard Business Review that's saying this. Microsoft has done this a study to just back up, I think, what everybody's thinking and feeling. And I think it brings us to the next point under logistics is really defining an appropriate duration for this meeting based on the agenda that you've set. So I know Microsoft or Outlook has the default times of 30 minutes and 60 minutes or whatever the case may be. But actually, you can go and change the start and end times of a meeting. Yeah. And so again, thinking about somebody having to move from one meeting room to the other, because we book people on the hour, like back to back, and there's no time for them to even go to the bathroom in between or whatever the case may be. So if it's a 30-minute meeting, allow for 20 minutes so that there's time before and there's time after, so that people always feel that they never feel that they're constantly running late, which is also quite a strain on energy levels, because people are like, oh my gosh, I'm late, and they don't even have time to process what meeting they've just come out of and what meeting they are walking into, because there is no time between. So again, this comes back to culture and the organization defining what the time should be. We need to give people time before and after, because it's not humanly possible now that, the hybrid way of working, we are back in the offices, we are going from meeting room to meeting room. It's not just, virtually where we are stopping and starting meetings. We do need that time, that break between each meeting, again, which lends to or adds to the productivity and efficiency of every meeting that someone is attending, because they are present in that meeting.
Yeah. I think you have to have time to digest and reset. Otherwise, you're going in and you've got something on your mind from the previous meeting, and you're trying to then think about how you're going to answer that, and you're distracted. You're not present for the new meeting. I mean, there's something like, I think the average worker attends 62 meetings a month, right?
Wow.
And that is madness. That's 15 to 20 hours per week of your time. And when you break that up into like, okay, that meeting's with 8 people, 7 people. The cost of a 1-hour meeting. I mean, if you actually think of the hourly cost of your employees, because nobody actually does, right? I think you think of, I'm getting my work done. Yeah. If you break your hourly cost, and I think it's an amazing exercise to do. We do it in sales of breaking down how many hours I'm putting into different tasks and assignments each week, and giving myself based on my revenue and hourly. It's easier for maybe sales rather than costs for other business divisions. But for me, I'm like, this is opportunity cost. So if I'm billing 200, 300,000, 400,000 a year, what is that cost per hour? And then every hour I'm spent not on that function is a cost to company, even more than my traditional hourly rate, which would be my cost to company plus my salary. There is opportunity cost that you're missing, which is the same with R&D or innovation, or honestly with any department. But you're not. And I think people need to be, if you start monetizing it, I think it actually helps people realize, I think we could cut this down to 15, 20 minutes.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if many people are aware, but you can change the scaling of your time on Outlook to 15-minute intervals. That's something I've done, which also helps to force you to think about, hey, can I do this meeting in 15 minutes? Because now your intervals look different. It's not just 30-minute buckets, there's 15-minute buckets. So instead of booking a 60-minute meeting, you could say, hey, I can shave off 15 and do a 45-minute. So the scaling is also making us think differently. So I would really encourage that as a very practical tool that you could change the scaling on Outlook.
Something like 25 minutes to 45 minutes is the ideal length of a meeting. And I think outside of that, they say like work tends to expand to fill the time, right? So like, oh, I've got, this is an hour. And then all of a sudden we're dragging things out. And you can't say this for all meetings, because of course, when you're looking at big strategy days, or like when we have our board meetings, there is a lot of blue sky thinking, and that takes time. And it is extremely, trying to rush some of those sessions. I was thinking of when we've done some values or vision or mission exercises with our team. I'm also very aware that downscaling that to 15, 30, 25, it actually has the wrong impact because you don't have enough time to really explore and open those topics. So it also does depend on the meetings, but from a day-to-day operational perspective, one-to-one basis, those things are what should be falling within these windows. And then when you've got time, and hopefully if you make it fit within these windows, it should give you time to have those larger, more meaningful innovation meetings or blue sky thinking meetings, which is where you do need some time to
absolutely
digest.
Something that we were challenged with in terms of running the meetings. If you are all sitting down, things take actually longer. But if we're having stand-up meetings, people want to get it over and done with much faster. So you get quite quick at doing it. I saw a really funny picture not so long ago where people were doing the plank. So every attendee was like doing the plank and discussing the points, and they were like, this is how fast we need to get through our points. So, I think it's really, again, assessing what's needed in this meeting and what's going to also drive that engagement and that focus in the meeting. So I think, again, it's setting that expectations up front, which I think leads us really well to our second point of our structure is the leadership of the meeting. Now, something that I've heard recently while I was doing this last module with one of our clients is that, I organize the meeting, but I don't see myself as the leader of the meeting or the facilitator of the meeting. I was the one who just put it in everyone's calendar. Now, I think that's a really dangerous thing because, you go into a meeting and then there's no focus because nobody's taking the lead. And so in a meeting, when you look at the leadership of the meeting, the facilitator is a really important role because you're actually guiding and steering and navigating that meeting to success. And what I mean by that is, when people are speaking or somebody has been cut off by someone, the facilitator is able to say, can you just hold that thought? Let this person finish their thought and then we'll come to you. Yeah. And I think that, again, really drives then a meeting etiquette, a structure, and then we get to success, which is what we want. We want value at the end of a meeting. So what are your thoughts on that piece?
I love it. And it's got me into, we have a guest upcoming that I was just having a conversation with about their topic. It's going to be very, very interesting about how you can encourage listening within meetings. So it'll be on topic here. But I think the one thing that came out that I want to share here is he was talking about a meeting structure where, let's say as a leader, you want to set a meeting. Actually, you don't have to be the one to run the meeting, and actually being able to take a step back of saying, as part of someone's development plan, let's say you want to run a sales meeting or a collaborative meeting or an interdepartment meeting, you would say to one of your team members, I want you to take the lead on this, giving them ample time to prepare the structure and agenda and things of that nature. But you'll lead this. And as a leader, you can enter that meeting and listen. We talk about, I know you talk about this a lot, Nelson Mandela and his leadership style, the whole tribal piece. And something I've taken massively from you and the leadership team is to be able to sit and listen but when I've run sessions, and I think we did this a couple of years ago when we were doing our values exercise, I actually didn't facilitate the room. I don't think you did either. We had our team members facilitate it so that we could observe and listen. We're not thinking about presenting. And I love that because that's just deciding who you want to take leadership in that meeting so that you can better observe, better take in, and then really understand how your team is feeling and how to deliver that.
Agreed. Because I think as a leader, yes, you come into a meeting, everyone's turning to look at you, right? And I think this is where, you said the story already, where Nelson Mandela said that his dad, who was a tribal chief, would be the last to speak in a room because he did not want to bias the room with his thoughts and ideas and opinions. He wanted to hear first. So really taking that collaborative approach. So again, a leader gets to set the tone of that meeting where, if they were the person to call up the meeting, be able to hand over the baton and say, this is this person's meeting. They are going to be running it today. Please give your full support, right? Or you walk into a meeting and we actually ask who is willing to volunteer to be the facilitator of this meeting. So again, there's many opportunities for leaders to grow the people on their teams I love that piece around teaching people how to facilitate meetings. What does that mean? How do you pull out something if reading people's body language that you can go,
Mhm.
Nate, it looks like you have something to add. Do you have something to add? That's a role of a facilitator, really watching the room, reading the room. This is where you bring in your emotional intelligence, right? From a communication perspective. Communication is not only the words that we all speak in the room, but it's also the body language that we should be reading. And if there's nobody facilitating the meeting, no one's actually paying attention to these different cues that are giving us clues to maybe unlocking an idea, maybe unlocking a different way of thinking, because nobody has pointed that out or been in that observation position.
Yeah, I always find it, and again, I don't want to take too much from our upcoming episode, but I will say that when I'm working through challenges or problems in a meeting,
Mm.
I tend to want to talk. And so I talk, it feels like I can talk a lot because
Mm.
I like to talk. The way I solve issues is I talk it through. So I
Yes.
verbalize it. So I don't have a solution yet, but I talk and it does fill space. And I appreciate there are other people that are listeners and they take time to
Mm.
digest before they, and many times it's, um, I want to make sure as a leader of a meeting, I give space to both. You don't want to stifle people that
Yes.
work through issues that way verbally, but you also want to make sure you give a safe space for people who are processing information differently so that they have the ability to be represented as well. So as I say, that will be its own 30-minute episode, but
Yeah.
it is interesting to label here when we talk about the structure of meetings, because when you think about how you want to facilitate the leadership of the meeting, who's leading it, how it's being led, who's involved, ensure you are building a structure that encourages all of your team members to add value.
Absolutely. I think while you were speaking, something that came to my mind was taking moments during the meeting to just stop and reflect on what have we just discussed before moving on to that next agenda point, the next agenda point. Because by the time, if it is a 60-minute meeting, by the time you get to the end, you almost forget what we discussed at the beginning if we haven't really agreed and captured the actions. So I think that again leads us well into that third point. What are the learnings or actions then from the meeting? So we're leading the meeting in a way where we are pulling out the ideas from people. We are respecting each other as we speak. We're not cutting people off when they are speaking. We are engaged, we are focused, we are present. But what's the tangible outcome then from the meeting? So I think the third point is then the learnings or the actions from this meeting. How are we capturing it? Do we have one person capturing? Is it the attendees capturing what we are saying and what we are agreeing to? Because at the end of the day, we want accountability from these meetings, right? We don't want to just come
Yeah.
in, speak, um, use the time, and then we walk out and everyone's forgotten what's expected of them. We come back, we do a follow up, and we're like, oh, sorry, I forgot. I didn't realize it was me that was supposed to do it. So, what we found was really beneficial is having another role within the meeting, asking for a volunteer, which is what I always do, who who would volunteer to take notes, right? And it doesn't have to be, long notes. Again, just simple notes of what are the actions and who's responsible and by when is it due. And so as soon as the meeting's done, we able to really send that out to everybody. We also have
Funny to think.
AI. Yeah, and
Yeah,
AI
that
can
doesn't
also
really
help
exist
us.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's funny to think that role in a meeting won't exist. It won't be a thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean AI is here. It's a tool that's helping us to do that. It's helping us to summarize what we have said. It's putting it into actions. So again, if you are having face-to-face meetings and not the, hybrid meetings or only virtual meetings, think about how you are integrating AI, these AI tools that are really powerful to help you in these meetings. So again, you get the full value out because it's hard to capture everything. You can actually get a transcript now, your full transcript of the meeting if you want to go back and see what did we discuss on that point, who said what. It really helps you to think through if there's an action point that you have to deliver on, maybe to go back and read through the context around that discussion, right? If that's because you're going from meeting to meeting, and this is what we are not expecting from people, is to absorb and remember every single thing throughout the entire day in every single meeting, because there's so much going on. So use tools that are at your disposal to help you and facilitate that.
Yeah, I would just people need to understand that you're not going to retain all the information that comes from a meeting. And I know you're just mentioning it. I mean, for people familiar with like psychology research and cognitive psychology research and the learning pyramid from Edgar Dale, if people have been aware of that in the past, like 10% of what you're really taking into those meetings are you really going to take on board, like that you walk away with. And that's a broad statement made through because there's loads of different research to how we interpret information, whether it's through reading, through doing, through saying. But I think what's important to emphasize is that when if you're not actually building a structure or building taking good notes, doing good follow-up, or re-engaging with the team following the piece, most of what's said is lost very quickly. And often you can fail to deliver retention against the actions that you put forward. I mean, I'm in situations where myself and a colleague will be in a meeting with a client, and we will interpret what happened in that meeting very differently, which I find so fascinating. So I've come out of meetings and gone, that went really well, and I've had a team member that went really poorly, so we've picked up on different things. You read emotion, you're doing a lot in a meeting. You're reading emotions, you're making eye contact, you're building relationships, you're perceiving how that person is. You're then taking in content on top of that, how it's delivered, the tone of voice. All of these things are helping you interpret what the meeting was about. And then sometimes you might get an email after and go, oh, actually, I didn't realize we agreed that or built that. So just be aware that I think if you're not, and I fall to it all the time where I've finished a meeting and we don't send the email after, and it's such a mistake. I mean, we're doing that as recruiters with our clients, even if you might have a few actions taken away from it, follow up with an email, confirm what the meeting was about, confirm what your actions are. People really appreciate it. And I think it helps you drive results so you don't have to have that same meeting again down the line.
Absolutely. Yeah, for me, I just wanted to have this discussion because it's something that we're talking about all the time. We walk into a room where we're coaching someone, they've just come out of a really tough meeting, and we actually have to help them get into the space of coaching because they've just been rushing. There's so much. And there are some tools that can help you between meetings. And I just want to just leave people with very practical tools to help you to focus on what you're doing now and get your mind into the present. And I think the first one is really taking some deep breaths. So it's called a stop exercise, STOP. So the S stands for just stop. Just stop what you're doing. You've gone from one meeting, you're going to go to another. Before you thinking about everything else, just stop what you're doing. Take in 3 deep breaths. And people may not think that breathing has benefits, but deep breathing has tremendous benefits. It's actually reducing anxiety. It's helping us think clearly. We have clarity of mind. And so as little as 3 deep breaths, 3 intentional deep breaths helps us to really reduce that. And then observe what is going on. How am I feeling? Am I feeling anxious? What are some of my emotions? Because we carry these emotions into the next meeting. And those people inadvertently get sometimes the worst side of us, and they actually have nothing to do with why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And unfortunately, they get it because they were there in front of you, right? And you haven't dealt with those emotions. So observe what you're doing and then proceed to the next. So think about, where am I walking into? Who am I going to? What meeting am I going to? What was needed from me before I move there? And this is why I said the duration of the meeting is so key, because you need those 5 minutes at least to do that stop exercise, so that when you walk into every meeting, you can be focused and present, and it doesn't feel that you are in just a constant rush.
Yeah, I think there's so many easy ways to do it. It's like if you give yourself the time, that 15 minutes, go for a walk outside, go play. I hate to, because I always say that it's not a perk, table tennis in the office, but I love, we have Well, I think calling it table tennis is a bit like generous, considering it's a bunch of tables we've slammed together in one of those Christmas nets, and ping pong is a very, very MacGyver type table. But between a meeting or two, myself and one of the team members, let's just play a bit of ping pong, do a simple activity. And I find so refreshed. And I'll do the same with video games, mind testers, something where I'm like, I just want a 5-minute break. Let my brain think about something else, unwork related. People I think have used things like meditation, breathing exercises. I also have a little tip for that. If you're somebody, it's a public speaking trick, but I do it before meetings as well. You squeeze all of your digits and release, and it helps with some blood flow and calming you and just taking some deep breaths. So I think the key element that you've mentioned here is just creating bubbles of time where you can take time for yourself so that you can show up and be more present in the meetings that you're getting to, and being more purposeful with the meetings that you want to step into so you can create yourself that time.
Agreed. So if you have been struggling with this, I think and you are a leader, I would say start these conversations within your organization. Really do an audit, a meeting culture audit, and collect the data from your own people to understand what's going well, what's not going well, and really take a moment to think about these 3 things we've spoken about: the logistics of the meeting, leadership of the meeting, and then the learnings or actions that come out of the meeting. How are you creating a structure for you and your culture, your team, your organization? Because without this, it's just going to just be people running on this hamster wheel and not really feeling like they are productive. The stats are showing that. People are saying that. They're crying out for support in this area. So as leaders listening to this, as HR professionals listening to this, take action today. Start with the audit. Let people know that this is top of mind, top priority, and everyone is going to contribute towards changing and shifting the culture from today to what it looks like tomorrow.
I love that, T. And I also, I love the audit piece. I think the first thing you can do when you leave this session, if you're listening, wherever you are, is the audit piece is amazing. Do I need this meeting? Don't I need this meeting? And then it can be a collaborative piece with the stakeholders in those meetings to see, can we facilitate this differently? I think if there's a key takeaway from this whole session, be ruthlessly intentional. I would say treat your time like a budget. Find a way to treat your time like a budget, because I think naturally you'll start to cut through things that are not value add. And I think you've got a good justification. Remember that meeting, and we chatted about this today, but the meeting culture reflects your company culture. And I think we touched on a few companies, but companies like Amazon, Shopify, Tesla, Google, they're using radical meeting practices to protect focus and provide drive and clarity. And you can see these are some of the most successful companies that are really looking at traditional meeting styles and challenging the way they're being done. So I think reflect on these tools, take through these 3 steps that T has provided to you. These are things that are being coached by our team to international teams all over. So if you do feel like you're a bit overwhelmed, you're not alone. And we have been facilitating, helping organizations reach this piece where people feel comfortable, where they're getting value out of those meetings, and they're becoming more productive, which is allowing you to meet your end goals. And we don't usually have a plug, but if you're interested in learning a bit more, I certainly would recommend reaching out to Terentia and her team, because I get to sit on the sidelines and watch what they do with some pretty amazing companies, very innovative, that are still locked in some old school practices. So we've given you some great tools, some good tips, some good tricks. Use this to your advantage. But if you're still seeking some help, you know where to find us.
Absolutely. And if there's any questions on this topic, feel free to email us at info@impeltalent.com. We're always wanting to hear your thoughts, your questions, and we'll be happy to connect with you. And so thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. I hope this is something that has been valuable for you. Again, just listen through, take 1 or 2 actions out of this. I think it will make a difference, and be consistent with it. So looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Hey, thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe.
You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, TuneIn, or even on our website at www.breakingthechain.online.